Scotland generates almost all its power from renewable energy, striking a balance between ecosystem and human life. Tzu Chi Clinic in Kuala Lumpur sets up a second-hand zone for refugees in need to collect suitable clothing. 歡迎收睇大亞 Headlines， 我係 Ruby 我哋一齊嚟睇下今日嘅內容。Scotland's energy system has changed dramatically over the past few decades. Once dominated by carbon-emitting fossil fuels, renewables are now the primary source of Scotland's electricity, setting a good example in maintaining a balance between human life and the ecosystem.
Scotland, this year's COP26 host, has 97.4% of its power generated from renewable energy. In Glasgow's suburbs, the Whiteley wind farm is the primary source of renewable energy in Scotland.
My name's Denise Robertson. I'm proud to work for Scottish Power, and we are here at Whiteley Wind Farm, which is the largest onshore wind farm in the UK. Scotland's a fantastic place for onshore wind because we have 1% of the land mass in Europe, but 25% of the wind. So it's a fantastic place to capture the fantastic natural resource, create more clean green energy, and get that into people's homes and businesses.
UK is an island, and in Europe also they have the monsoon, not like Asia, but the monsoon, for example, during the winter time, they call labis. Labis means the north wind. The north wind is very strong, just like in Asia, we have the northeast wind from the north, and such kind of strong wind can bring lots of the wind energy.
So at Whiteley we have 215 turbines. They generate clean electricity of 539 megawatts. What does that mean? That means enough clean energy to power around 350,000 homes, and that's more than every home in the city of Glasgow, which is just on our doorstep.
However, reducing environmental impact while implementing clean energy tech is where companies face their biggest hurdle.
So sometimes we have too much wind farm, especially in the land. It will destroy the ecosystem. It's good for the energy, but very bad for the ecosystem, especially for the first strike and also the best strike. Ecosystem and also the energy. It should make a balance.
So Scottish Power takes its responsibilities as a developer really, really seriously, and managing and mitigating any potential environmental impact of sites like Whiteley is a huge part of the process for us, and we get to work literally from day one, speaking to local communities, to stakeholders, surveying and assessing the lands, and that starts at the very beginning, even just by choosing where we site. But we've got a detailed environmental and habitat management plan that makes sure we look after this site. So the wildlife, the peatland, everything that's around this site, we look after that and make sure that that's managed in the best possible way. We've also opened up the site so that people can come and enjoy it and take advantage of the fantastic environment that we have around us. So battery storage is a big part of how we can help stabilise and balance the grid on days when it's maybe not as windy and we're not capturing as much power. So we have one super battery on site at Whiteley, and we are currently planning for a second one.
Fossil fuel will be fade off very quickly, maybe in 10 to 20 years. After that, I think the renewable energy is only the solution for our Earth.
Striking a balance between human life and the ecosystem, the direction of Scotland's energy policy and development is a role model for all.
So Whiteley's been really excited to welcome a number of visitors during COP26. We've had visitors from Indonesia, from the US, from Israel, all of them just really inspired to see what we've been able to do here.
The first week of COP26 has concluded with government representatives expecting more countries to fulfill their commitments. The host, the United Kingdom, has long been an advocate of green energy and carbon pricing. Let's see if Taiwan can keep up with such measures.
COP26 has entered its second week, and global consensus was reached on many climate issues. The host, the United Kingdom, vowed to fully use green energy to generate electricity by 2035.
We lead the world now in offshore wind, looking at what we can do with other renewable sources, carbon capture and storage, with hydrogen potentially. We think we can get to complete clean energy production by 2035.
Coal-fired power generation involves about 40 countries, like Poland. where coal is produced, as well as South Korea and Vietnam, where we are familiar with. They all promise to start burning coal for power generation from 2030 to 2040. This is very big progress.
Many countries have called out to stop burning coal, but is this merely a slogan? The truth remains to be seen. To reach the zero carbon goal, carbon pricing is a science pioneered by the UK. In addition to the EU's emissions trading system, there is also carbon tax led by the Ministry of Finance in the UK. It's a two-pronged approach. In contrast, Taiwan lacks such a market mechanism.
The key is that we must return to a market mechanism so that this system can operate, and enterprises as well as the market will be willing to accept the cost. Here for us, Taiwan, it's sort of just a talk without practical action.
Whether carbon reduction can succeed or not is a test of determination. In 2020, the world's first hydrogen-powered double-decker bus appeared in Scotland. Coupled with the original wind and solar energy, the UK is turning the corner on replacing traditional energy.
You see that they not only have electric buses, but also hydrogen vehicles. Even construction machinery have begun to use hydrogen energy, as they see this as a part of the future market, which is called climate change emerging industries.
Net zero carbon emissions is not a slogan, but a determination that requires immediate action.
The United Nations Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change warned that in just over a decade, there will be more and more extreme heat waves, droughts and floods, highlighting the importance of carbon reduction, which was also the consensus of the Paris Climate Agreement. Follow our report as we learn more about the practice in Taiwan.
I'm a carrion beetle. You can call me a funeral director as I participate in a decent funeral for animals. It's part of my daily life, and it also allows my family to survive until global warming, when climate change broke the balance of our reproduction.
Amami Oshima in Japan or Ula in Taiwan are actually a relatively low altitude place where environmental pressure is very intense, making it harder. Meaning carrion beetle cannot reproduce throughout the year, as it can only reproduce in winter. In the case of higher temperatures, its main competitor, which may be called blowflies, can quickly detect corpses. When the temperature is high, the speed at which the blowfly decomposes the corpse will actually be very high. Correspondingly, the carrion beetle needs cooperation to dispose of our corpse.
Species around the globe cannot escape climate change. In 2021, the IPCC United Nations Climate Change Group will present the latest research written by hundreds of scientists, telling us what the climate will look like now and in the future. What is the worst-case scenario?
Actually, we have said before that compound disasters are terrifying. After the earthquake and the typhoon, or the typhoon if there will be a landslide, if they meet together, and if compound disasters are extreme and appear again and again, this means that our disaster will be bigger than we imagine.
The IPCC report raises a red flag. The current frequency of extreme events is 5 times as high as history. Each increase of 1.5 degrees will increase the probability of these events by 9 times. An increase of 2 degrees will lead to an increase of 14 times the frequency.
Internationally, it is called a red code, which means that they have already given you a warning. Taiwan is on the red list, and if we don't make some changes quickly, we are actually the next refugee, and we don't know when it will happen, but it will be happened in Taiwan.
Every place on the earth is undergoing changes: hot weather, retreat of glaciers, the lowest sea ice area in 1,000 years, and bizarrely different scenery of nature. Without water, no living thing can survive.
The climate of this year in August did not have a lot of rain, so when we planted black beans, the growth was very sporadic and only had less than 1/3 of the yield.
That is to say, by so-called 2060, there may be no winter in Taiwan. The impact will raise the possibility higher of a water shortage for agricultural water in Taiwan. It may reach 20 to 30% or even 40%.
Drought and floods dominate the survival of farmers like Liu Zhengyo, who has 100 hectares of land in Xingfeng Township, Hsinchu, with his family. In the year when he returned to his hometown from abroad, it was an extravagant hope to grow rice during a severe drought.
When water is limited, we are aware of this extreme climate. The problem we face is that the water source is very important, so there's no way to do farming on the basis of traditional seedling transplant.
A crisis can be a turning point. An immature seed allowed Lil Zhengyo to find a way out.
It is possible to not have a lot of water, and then as long as it has light, the right temperature and water, this seed was brought into such a plant. For this idea, I derived the concept of direct seedling rice.
Dry field direct seeding is different from ordinary rice planting. It is no longer dependent on water to be able to plant seedlings, giving him hope instead of relying on nature.
If the crisis is more urgent, it will actually make a person act faster as well as animals. In fact, our actions need to be quicker. We need to be clear that if the crisis is right in front of us, are we willing to act?
From carrion beetles to rice fields, the slightest knowledge can raise the alarm bell that climate change is ahead of us, and is mankind ready to face the challenge?
As the raging pandemic has greatly affected refugees' lives, the Tzu Chi Clinic in Kuala Lumpur set up a second-hand zone for refugees in need to collect suitable clothing. Boxes of clothing were sorted out by volunteers from the Kuala Lumpur Happy Garden Recycle Station, getting ready to distribute to refugees.
In order to reduce their number of contacts, we have put the size stickers of small, medium, large on every hanger.
Under the pandemic, refugees are living a hard life. With the help of recycling volunteers, Kuala Lumpur Tzu Chi Clinic has set up a small second-hand zone.
The reason is because a patient mentioned to me that she couldn't afford to buy shoes. Because of the pandemic, the income of her husband is not stable. He was even unemployed for a while before, so she couldn't afford to buy daily necessities or what she needs.
It just happened that our second-hand zone is not operating during this pandemic, so we still have a lot of good condition second-hand clothes here. So everyone is welcome to bring their clothes to the free clinic to help those in need.
A seemingly simple piece of old clothing is of great significance to refugees in need.
How many members you have? 8 persons. Second-hand.
The second-hand zone will be in operation 2 days a week, which can help people in need and prolong the life of old clothing. As the pandemic has eased in Malaysia, the government lifted their lockdown and allowed residents to cross state borders in hopes of boosting the domestic economy. Let's see how this lifting of restrictions has affected traveling, sales and stores at the last weekend of Deepavali.
This busy market in Little India is filled with a happy vibe. Last year, due to the lockdown, people couldn't reunite with their families to celebrate Deepavali. Thus, everyone is glad they can this year.
I'm studying here at Penang and my hometown is JB. So now I'm going to take my flight and need to go back my hometown, and then only I need to see first whether I can celebrate in house or in temple. Quite excited because it's been 2 years we celebrate like this. Bring back to JB.
Last year we couldn't travel across state borders and we couldn't celebrate. We couldn't see our parents because my hometown is in Perlis. My brothers and sisters are there too. This year the lockdown has been lifted and we can have our new year. We can visit family, so we are happy. We've purchased desserts, lights, which the kids like. These are for lights and this is for incense for prayers.
The market is not as filled as years past, but it's due to the government restriction, as only those who have received both vaccinations can enter designated stores and cross state lines. Despite these safety measures in place and the controlled traffic flow, the store owners are still very optimistic.
The field is little bit down because the economy reason. Now only open the CMCO. People are struggling for money. Where they buy 10 shirts, now they are buying 3. But they still will celebrate. Yeah, Deepavali is most important day for us.
Last year, last 4 days, government announced lockdown already. After 1 year, people want to travel interstate. Today, average because our government just now released the lockdown right. So overall, it's okay. They make a budget actually. They control.
Suddenly it starts to rain, but the crowds do not disperse and still continue to shop around. Although opening the state borders carries the risk of spreading infection, on an economical level, it is definitely a good move. Residents must continue to follow pandemic safety protocol to protect themselves and others, so this opportunity does not disappear.
Tzu Chi Philippines chapter celebrated its 27th anniversary with a sunrise pilgrimage and a fundraising charity sale. Everyone responded enthusiastically, cultivating positivity to move forward after the pandemic.
今天是菲律宾慈济的27周年就是首先是要感恩上人创造慈济世界。
At 6 o'clock in the morning, the sound of Tzu Chi chanting welcomed the 27th anniversary of the Philippines chapter. After a challenging year, everyone is deeply touched.
因为就是疫情的关系。
Because of the pandemic and the 2 tropical typhoons at the end of last year, our Filipino volunteers worked tirelessly to help those affected.
In 1994, Mrs. Lina Chua planted the first seed of goodness in Manila. Since then, the missions of charity and medicine began. Tzu Chi Philippines has encountered numerous typhoons and driven tens of thousands of people to join the Cash for Work program, inspiring community volunteers to move forward. In the face of the current pandemic, volunteers are still active in distributing medical supplies and raising equipment funds.
Because for me, Tzu Chi's mission and vision is very noble. So it's something that being part of the noble mission is already uplifting for me.
Overseas Chinese also spare no efforts in gathering goodness.
A Tzu Chi member, Sister Nancy, sells jewelry in 2 shopping malls in the Philippines, but she no longer wants to run the business, so she is willing to donate all her goods to Tzu Chi.
I've heard about this a long time ago and always wanted to buy something in the charity sale. At the time when it is mostly needed, I can come and help.
The proceeds from the charity sale will be used as a setup fund to continuously help disadvantaged people. Tzu Chi's free clinic not only alleviates the suffering of the disadvantaged, but also inspires the love of daughters. Today we'll meet Dr. Cai Wenfang, who was initially unwilling to do his first house call, but it made him realize the value of being a doctor. Since then, he continued to go to remote places to provide free consultation to elders.
1是左脚，2是右脚，1、2、1。认为无舒适吧？目睭下。阿公，你手安那？你有皮哦，你有皮哈。不会痛了哈。太好了哈，爱他在心口难开啊。
The elders we often visit to conduct house calls later are very much like the elders in our family.
你陪我行路啊，哈。
Sometimes if one of them passes away, I would always feel sorrow in my heart. Since my father was a farmer, sometimes he didn't have enough money to pay our tuition. He had to ask the rice store owner to lend us some money, then pay him back after the harvest.
神圣这个名词啊，就是在
term doctor is a very attractive career in our country.
引力的一个向往的一个职业。来哦， 阿稳啊，手是安怎会掉安尼？长去搁走位去哦。
The rate of patients' return visits is very high. He has many outpatients in his clinic.
刚初期我离开学校的时候，其实
In the early days after I finished college studies, if there were chances to make money, I would try my best to earn money. To put it simply, I took up too much overtime work. I needed to see my patients. There were many medical records on my table.
澳的民众无检查中大分别。
Originally, a doctor planned to conduct house call, but he was not available to go, so he asked me to fill in. I thought to myself, I didn't want to go early on Sunday since I would not get enough sleep. I said, okay, but in fact, I didn't want to go. However, it is commonly believed that once you make a promise, you have to achieve it. As I already promised to go, I would go this time, but next time I would say, I don't have the time if you invite me again.
人医会来给你看你的身体，去义诊给我。
It gave me a different feeling when I conducted the house call. I wondered why everyone was so energetic, not like me very tired, even though they did not have enough sleep.
慢慢来啊，拐杖牙好哦。只讲到了经济效益，可是你忘了讲到。
People may only be concerned about economic benefits, but didn't take spiritual benefits into account. For example, it may not be necessary to mobilize so many people to visit an elder, but it is just because of this mobilization that touches people's hearts.
因为这样子的劳师动众，才让人家感动啊。
This service is very good. I just feel embarrassed because it is free of charge. I have nothing to give. I'm sorry. It's better to have so many people coming. He was just sleeping, and he would be angry if I woke him up. But if I told him that the volunteers came to visit, he would be willing to get up.
I felt like it could be of little help. Later, I continued to conduct house calls as I really liked that feeling.
的都还不错，正常。想要菩萨臂的手势 OK 哦。医疗的这一块并不欠缺，可是欠缺的可能就是我们刚刚讲的那个观。
Medical treatment is already available, but what is lacking is a caring heart, the feeling of I care for you. If my life is a circle divided into 3 parts, each part representing my career, family, volunteer work, I hope in the future the portion of volunteer work will increase. Just like sitting in the clinic with 4 walls and a person sitting in the middle, you will see the Chinese character of prison. If we add a heart below, it will turn into grace, meaning that a prison with an open mind can be turned into a grateful heart.
感恩的人，很感恩他们有机会让我们去走入他们的生命。
Students of different grades from Tzu Chi Senior High School performed a musical drama, Dream Tracer, in English to show the results of bilingual teaching. They had overcome many difficulties to prepare and rehearse. We'll leave you with these images. Thank you and see you next time.